The games we play. Child, I had to make this video because I think too many of us are getting lost in the games that were not of our design, that we have chosen to play but forget our own agency and are losing ourselves to these workspaces, these professional standards, these professional narratives that exist in American work culture, and it is taking us out, y'all. Like, this was brought on because I was listening to a woman who was talking about a break that she took from a very successful period in her career and her wayfinding through the regrets and the remorse, but then also recognizing that the choices that she made were actually perfect for where she needed to be in life, and that they were not haphazard, and that was making all these character judgments against herself when she did exactly what she needed to do to play her own game. So I want to talk about that. If you are a woman who is recognizing that you are at risk of or you are currently in too deep, this video is for you. Okay? As I said from the jump, there's a difference between playing the game and being defined by the game. There's a difference between playing the game and being shaped by the game. If you start to recognize that your own definitions of what is good, or even the big question, which so many of the women that I work with in my executive coaching practice are often sitting with this question, which is, what do I want success to mean to me? And maybe they felt like they did know the answer to that in a previous chapter of their career. Maybe they've never quite known. They've just been climbing ladders of their whole lives that have just felt like they were placed in front of them and that they had to do it, that they were pressured into achieving in a certain way and had to look a certain way. But playing the game means that you recognize there's a game that you have opted into. It's not your game. I didn't invent Monopoly, but if I choose to play it, I'm going to play according to its rules, but also at my standard. We're going to talk about this. Okay. So as we progress in our careers, because I think this is where the problem starts to really come in. But as we progress in our careers, we start out as really junior folks, and you're just doing what you got to do to really learn the rules of the game. You're trying to figure out what the game is. You're realizing that it even is a game. You're like, oh, so this is a game. Got it. And all of us come into our careers with varying levels of exposure and experience, understanding what we're getting into and what we're not. But at some point, as you progress, you begin to learn the rules of the game. You start to see, oh, really 60 and then 70 and then 80% of my time, my energy here is really about relationships and politics and people's feelings and managing human interactions, right? Navigating interpersonal dynamics, that is about 80% at some point. When you get more and more and more senior, that's what your job becomes. The majority of what you are doing day to day is about all of the human interactions, all the managing of the feelings, literally launching communication campaigns to shape perceptions of the work that you do. So it's about the relationships and how you relate to people, not about that maybe 20% that's about direct execution. Okay. And so that is what it is. You know, that is what it is, especially those of you I'm talking to right now. This is more for a corporate focused baddie. And once you've been doing that for a while, you climbed that ladder, you figured out what the game was, you figure out where the ladders and the chutes were in the first place, and you're able to start climbing, you're finding success, you're spending your days in the depths of the politicking of it all, in the depths of shaping perception. And you can emerge from that if you're not careful, thinking, believing that the game is real. Thinking, believing that you are not someone who has clocked into the game, who is whole in and of herself, who has her own ideals, who has her own standards, who has criteria that needs to be met in order to offer your talents and gifts to whoever it is you choose to employ you. But that you're believing things like, I'm lucky to be here. I should feel lucky to be here. That your work product and whether or not you get the awards or the accolades or, just the acknowledgement, which can be rare, especially in certain cultures, working cultures, that's a true reflection of your worth and value, that the energy output, the overextension of your energy is normal, and that it should be that way, and that it should not necessarily be questioned to any great degree. The belief or being bought into that you are easily replaceable, despite the fact that you have risen to whatever ranks that you've risen to, feeling wholly replaceable. Maybe not consciously, but subconsciously, your behaviors are exhibiting that belief, right? And realizing that, or just feeling that your time should belong to this place, that they actually have a stake in your precious time in this one life that you get to live, and that they should direct your time, that they get to do that. Because again, we go back to that first early belief that you're so lucky just to be there. Count your blessings. You're lucky to be here. And here's the thing, sticking with that belief as a core driving factor, it's not that you're not lucky, blessed, fortunate to have the position that you have. Yeah, you might be. That's a wonderful feeling to have, to feel like I feel so fortunate to work here. I love that I get to do this work with these kinds of people on these kinds of things, solving these kinds of problems, creating X, Y, and Z into the world. Sure, that's great. The problem is most of the time, it's not reciprocated. In any healthy relationship, both parties, like when I think about my husband, when we're at our happiest and healthiest, the goal is to feel like I'm so lucky to have him, and he feels the exact same. I'm so lucky to have her. We're both lucky to be in this, to be co-creating this together. But that's not the way it often plays out, right? When it comes to our professional relationship with these organizations, these institutions, that we are just giving more than we're receiving. Thinking about this made me realize something about myself, because I worked in various forms of corporate America for the first decade and a half-ish of my career. And I started out at a very large multinational corporation. Then I moved to a much smaller firm and stayed in kind of like small and mid-sized firms. Then I went to a startup where I was the 7th employee. There was something subconsciously happening, I think, with me, recognizing that I'm not really interested or cut out for these big corporate politics. I'm not really interested in and equipped. Like I'm just didn't come here with this programming. And perhaps it was just a lack of me understanding. It's not because like I failed in these spaces. It was just that my preference was to not build there. I was like, I don't really get a future here, because it seems like that's what's going to be required of me. And I had no one like myself as an executive coach at that stage in my career to help me understand that there are ways that you can shape your career where you are still holding more of the reins, taking up more space, becoming more and more self-directed, and holding some boundaries. That there are people who don't give everything in order to grow in their careers. But yeah, for me, I just kept choosing something new. I was like, I need freedom and flexibility. I need to move. I need space to stretch these wings and fly. I need to be somewhere where I can have flexibility over my time. I have a lot more movement when it comes to how I spend my days and the kinds of projects and things I get, to work on. I'm not necessarily siloed into a very, very narrow scope of work where, I have to just do this one thing over and over again. And then in order for me to grow or develop out of that space, that politics is the way out, and navigating complex relationships and dynamics is the way up. I was not equipped for that. And I have no shame in saying it. I was just like, this is not for me, I don't think. But again, this is all happening sort of subconsciously. And so as I sat down to write some quick notes for this video and thought about an example of what sort of illustrates how this plays out for me, I hearkened back to a family game night at one of our dear friends' houses over the holidays. And we were having a good time, food and wine, and the kids are playing. It's just like a great family fun night. We're all hanging out. And then someone pulls out this game called Phase 10. I've never played Phase 10. If you've played Phase 10 before, shout it out in the comments. I've never, I had never heard of the game, but I was game to play. I just said to opt into this new game. I was like, everybody said this is going to be really fun. I'm here to have a good time. Let the good times roll. So we pull out Phase 10. And like so many other game nights I've experienced in my life prior to this night, I am truly, truly here for the good times. Okay? And you start to look around the table and see who is here to crush souls, who is here to, play around, not really be serious, who everybody has their own agenda, their own approach to game playing, right? And I just got to see myself again because I haven't actually had like a fun sort of game night like that, especially because there was maybe 8 of us around the table, maybe 10 of us at some point. It was like a pretty big group that was playing in these different phases and rounds. And it's less about the exact game itself, but more so that it's, meant to be fun competition, friendly competition, a simple card game to have some laughs and to see who wins, right? But yeah, I'm looking around and I'm recognizing what's my role is here is I'm the good time girl. Like I am here because I want to giggle and be silly and make memories, have fun exchanges and little, tit for tats, and like I'm here for the theatrics and the fun of it all. And I thought that was such a great illustration of me in various contexts where I am asked to step into the rules of someone else's game and who I know I already am and how I show up, which is I have my own rules. I know what I'm here for, and it may not be for the top objective of this game. Like, people say that it is such an admirable thing in many contexts in our lives to not take ourselves too seriously. But I think in this way, I take myself very seriously. I take myself, my priorities, my values, my goals seriously because I really only care about what's going to contribute to my thriving. And so what can you actually get out of a game night by crushing everybody and winning? And this is, look, be easy on me. If you know you're that girl who gets around a spades table, who gets the taboo out, and you are ready to like bust some heads, girl, live your life. I'm just talking about, specifically, it's not about board games, but this was just an illustration of how I operate in broader context because one may or may not be, they may not parallel or echo each other in your life. You could be, hardcore at these kinds of things and also very much, hold your bounds and stand your ground when it comes to other things in your life that really matter outside of a game night. But again, this was just a fun illustration for me of what I'm focused on and what I hope that we can all begin to remind ourselves that we truly should consider reattaching ourselves to, which is our thriving in life. And so when I thought about what I get out of game nights and how I come in with a focus on things like connection, things like play, things like joy, things like laughter, things like creativity, things like bonding and creating memories with people, I will walk away from that game, whether I have won or not. I'm not winning no money. And even if I was, so what? It's not where I'm not a professional gamer, But nothing else is really on the line. If you take home the title championship for playing Phase 10, but no, nobody speaks to you. Did you really win? What was it all for? And so that's the question I just want to remind us of all in this quick video today. As you're looking at the games that you are choosing to play, remembering that you are still choosing. You are still empowered. You are still empowered to choose, to make the choice to play the game. You have opted in, okay? And to not forget your power, to not forget your agency, to not forget the role that you play, the power that you carry within you. And the fact that you are always at choice and you can always make a new choice and that you don't have to accept every single rule. I think some of the people who take things the farthest in corporate America are those, and I know these rules play differently depending on the set of identities that we carry, okay? But I have also seen this, you know, for us, where you are willing to get above the game and see where there are loopholes in some of these rules, where there are opportunities that you can exploit, not in a way that means you have to be a jerk to people, not in a way that means you have to, you know, be terrible to people, you know, at least to some level and in some corporate environments. I think my true belief is that at the very tippity top, somebody's getting stepped on at some point. You know, just my little perspective, not evidence-based, but really, yeah, just knowing that you don't have to. You don't have to anything. And that honestly, it is a lot more compelling and attractive when we exude that level of confidence to ask the question, how can I be of the highest and best, you know, service or contribution in this meeting? Do I actually need to be there? Where else might I be that would be more high leverage for the goals of the team, for the goals of the company, for the goals of the season? You know, like thinking and moving as someone who takes herself seriously while playing the game, and knowing that yourself, the things that are highest priority in our very human lives, have to do with the things that we will be considering. I think about this all the time when I'm just even boiling down to the small decisions that I have to make day to day. It's like, on my deathbed, did I optimize for the connection that I'm going to be thinking about, the relationships that I wished I had invested in or not? Or am I going to be thinking about how I crushed extra projects and damn near killed myself in the process, you know? I think that it's important for us to come into what actually supports our survival and our thriving, and to focus our actions in those areas. So the message today is to not let the game fool you, to not let it rock your foundation, to not let it take you away from your center, and to hold yourself as the utmost priority in your work and life. I was going to give a quote from the Players Club. The movie The Players Club, but I'm just not. I'm not. For those who know, you know, put it in the comments. You know what I'm talking about. But anyway, thank you as always. My name is Monique R Shields. I am here 5 days a week, Wednesday through Sunday, for this 30 episode video sprint I'm doing here on YouTube. I care the most about helping women who are high achieving, who have high capacity, but who are on the verge of or in the midst of burning out, come back into themselves or not lose track of themselves in the first place, and to develop the capacity and the tools and the strategies and the mindset of a woman who is whole and embodied and successful as she shapes her ambition. All right, y'all. See you tomorrow.